I'm Susan Shaner with Sage Leadership Strategies, and I'm your host today of Community Forum. And I have the great pleasure to have with me David Harris, who is the founder and managing partner of Acuity Capital Management down the road a little ways in Greenwich. Welcome, David.
Nice to be here.
It's nice to have you.
Thank you.
Can you give us an overview of your background and how you came to this work?
I spent about 15 years or so working at several large firms on Wall Street out of business school. Solomon Brothers and Bankers Trust and Bank of America for the most part. After about 15 years, I found myself doing less of what I thought I was good at and less of what I wanted to do, which was produce and run investment portfolios, and became more sort of executive administrative in my duties, and I was running a large group of people, and again spending less time focusing on the markets and trying to make money. And I decided in I guess about the middle of 2001 that I was going to take some time off and see what else I wanted to do with my life, and I left Wall Street. I spent about 2 years pursuing other interests away from the markets, and I found myself enjoying it a lot. I had gotten a call at one point from someone that I had worked with prior to my leaving Wall Street, asked me if I was interested in setting up a hedge fund, starting our own business, and in the middle of 2003 we decided to start Acuity, and we are in Greenwich, as I said. We focus on a strategy that is called convertible bond arbitrage, which is a fairly involved strategy, but one that I had been doing for a good deal of my career down on Wall Street, and that's what we do. So
I'm going to back up a little bit. So first of all, it sounds like you left Wall Street just before 9/11, just fortuitously.
Yes.
So your timing was probably actually pretty good just to take some time off.
It was. I left in the middle of, or actually towards the beginning of 2001, and the markets had a very difficult couple of years. The internet bubble had burst, and 9/11 happened. So I didn't find myself actually missing it too much.
Right.
But after a couple of years, it was time for me to go back and do something related to that.
So you said that you found yourself moving away from the actual work that you liked, so it sounds like you were managing more people versus really looking at the market and figuring out what the strategies were that you wanted to employ.
I think at large Wall Street firms, what tends to happen is the best producers end up getting pulled away from what it is that has made them successful. And for many people, that is a career move that is interesting for them. Again, I always liked to do what I thought I was good at, and so I found myself really not enjoying as much what it was that had gotten me to that point. And I left voluntarily, which is somewhat unusual on the street. Most people tend to stay for as long as they can until they're asked to leave or until their situation changes, but I really wanted to leave on my own terms. I think that there is this thought in many people's minds that sort of once you're on the street or when you're working for a big bank or a brokerage firm, you're sort of set for your career. And I think that obviously with what has gone on in the markets over the last 6 months or so, it's somewhat illusory that you have this career that is guaranteed. And so I'm happy that I had made the move I did.
What made you decide to leave? I mean, you say it was a voluntary leave, and it sounds like you were very successful. You did well there, and obviously the Wall Street has a reputation for not being the most pleasant of environments.
Well,
so what was your experience?
Pleasant. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I think that, again, my decision to leave was a personal one. I had been doing that sort of business for about 15 years, and I just found myself, as I said before, spending less time at what I really was good at and what I enjoyed, and so it was not as exciting as it had been for me.
So your colleague called you up and sort of propositioned you to start this together.
He said, what are you doing? Get off the beach.
Yeah.
Stop driving carpool. Let's go start a business.
Right. So can you give us sort of a user-friendly term for how you would define what a hedge fund is and why people would want to put their money there?
Sure. Hedge fund, the term hedge fund is fairly generic at this point, but it refers to a private pool of capital that is managed in various strategies, investment strategies. It is typically set up from a legal standpoint as a partnership, and so the owners of the business are the general partners, and the investors are the limited partners. And so it has come to refer to a number of businesses that are now much broader in scope than it used to be. I mean, historically, when hedge funds were much fewer in number, 15 years ago or so, they tended to be run by wealthy individuals whose investors were also wealthy individuals, and they were not regulated, and they tended to focus on a fairly limited number of investment strategies. And as it became successful as a business model, more and more types of funds started to proliferate. As a misnomer, there are many hedge funds that are out there that don't exactly hedge, and so it becomes something that can be thought of by people as something that is always going to protect an investor if the market goes down. Now,
when you say it doesn't exactly hedge, so what defines a hedge, like a hedge fund versus like a mutual fund, or what's the hedging?
Well, exactly. There are many hedge funds that look very much like mutual funds. They will primarily be long various parts of the market, and there is not that much difference necessarily for many of those types of funds how they perform relative to a mutual fund. In our particular strategy, it's more of a relative value strategy. We are not trying to predict the direction of one particular security, but rather we are buying one security and shorting another one at the same time, based on the relationship between the two.
Can you explain, just for our viewers, because you're throwing out a lot of terms I know you're familiar with it, that you may think are like common, but they may not be. So when you say shorting, just tell us what that means.
Sure. Shorting a security means to sell something that you don't yet own, and you are hoping that it goes down in price so that in the future you're going to buy it back at a lower price. So it's really the reverse of when people think about buying stocks, just to make it an easy example. They buy the stock or go long. They hope it appreciates in price. That you don't own, you hope it goes down in price so that you can buy it back later at a lower price. And that's the difference.
Okay.
So there are many strategies that do employ hedges where they are long and short at the same time. We are one of those. There are, as I said, though, many types of hedge funds or strategies that have sort of strayed away from that, and so they will act more like an underlying mutual fund in that particular.
So is that actually where the term comes, hedging your bets? Is that or does it come from somewhere else?
That is what, again, that is what hedge fund was initially designed to represent. It was supposed to protect investors or allow investors to make money regardless of the direction of the market, and not just if the market went up in price. So that's, I think, how the terminology came to be.
Yeah.
I think that with, obviously, a lot of the press recently tends to try to find culprits for markets going down, and often hedge funds are named as one of those culprits. I think
you're not getting a lot of good press lately.
We tend, well, we tend as people, I think, to look for somebody to blame when things go wrong. There are certainly a lot of different fingers to point at why the market has done what it's done over the last several months. Hedge funds, to me, though, are really a vehicle by which many investors can get exposure to various markets. So a hedge fund in itself is not a bad thing or an evil thing or a good thing. It is just another type of entity that has developed and allows investors to basically decide what types of exposure they want to have. So no different. Obviously, there are those who abuse the rules and have gotten into legal problems, but I think as a percentage of overall hedge funds, the amount that have really sort of crossed the line is tiny. They tend to get a lot of publicity and headlines, but I don't think any more so really than any other business, more or less financial business,
So what kind of challenges, can you just speak to kind of what you're navigating in these white waters these days in the market?
Well, I need a bigger pair of oars, maybe. It's been a very difficult year for, obviously, many investors, many types of funds. Obviously, the banks are having a very difficult time. The brokerage firms, well-publicized failures and job losses, and the hedge fund industry has suffered as well. There are some issues with how the business has evolved over the last, I would say, 5 or 7 years. For funds that are smaller in size, as well as funds that focus on one particular strategy. Similar to, I think, what has happened in many other industries, the business has become much more consolidated. So there are some gigantic funds out there, hedge funds. They start to look like mini institutions. So they start as these little sort of partnerships, and they sell themselves as being flexible and being able to navigate through the markets better. As a that larger banks or brokerage firms have. Many of the politics that spring up in large institutions aren't there when a business is small.
But as they get bigger,
as they have become a success, they tend to start to look like the businesses that they left. And there are a number of those who have come to sort of dominate, if you will, the hedge fund landscape.
And so then do they start looking more like mutual funds, or no?
Well, they start to be more institutionalized. The business model for a very large hedge fund is to try to gather as many assets as possible. The way that hedge funds are compensated, maybe we can just talk about that for a second, so you can understand the motivation for the managers. Hedge funds generally are paid a management fee, which tends to be a small fixed percentage, 1 or 2% of the assets. Those tend to be in place in order to pay for the ongoing business expense, for hiring people, for having infrastructure, computers, rent. And they then get paid a performance fee, which is generally a percentage of any profits they make. And that typically is where the gravy is, where
Right.
where a manager or where a business can do very well if they do well for their investors.
Which is only fair, right?
Which is only fair. I mean, I think one of the beauties of the business is as a hedge fund, it's a very pure business.
You're paid for your performance.
We only get paid if we make money, and so that is different. That's a different structure than a mutual fund, where the assets are being put fees upon whether or not they are successful. Hedge funds tend to only do well if they make money for themselves. As some of these hedge funds have gotten larger, they are not necessarily as interested. They are, but really it's much harder to do with an enormous pool of capital. But they are more interested in just keeping assets under their roof, because the management fee, the fixed fee, is then a very, very large number, and so their performance isn't as important. We are still a very small business, so we tend to be much more focused on trying to generate performance, so that we can we can make money as a business.
So how do you find your investors? Is this just through your network, or do you do marketing?
That's interesting. My partner tends to focus more on the investment and client side, and trying to raise money. It tends to become a fairly small sort of world. Again, because my partner and I both had been on the street for a while, we were known entities, had a good pedigree, if you will. Although I have to say, when you start a business, when we started in the middle of '03, there are a lot of people that say, "Oh, great! As soon as you start, we're going to give you money. We know you're smart. We know you're a good trader." But when it comes time to turn on the lights, everyone says, "Well, we'll just wait and see how you do."
Exactly.
So it's much harder to actually.
How are we going to do without anything to start?
Right. So we ended up starting much smaller than we had sort of thought when we made our business plan. You start trying to build a track record. And investors, whether they be institutional or individual, tend to follow each other, and there's a momentum or a herd effect. And so as a business starts to perform, they will then get more money in. And it's a lot of meetings. It's a lot of conferences that my partner primarily goes to, although I go to some as well. You have to sort of drill a lot of holes, and most of them, there's nothing there, but you drill a lot of holes and you try to generate a buzz or a name for yourself as a business and get on databases, and it takes a while. It does take a while.
Well, so you've been in business 5 years now.
5.5 years.
5.5. So it sounds like you're the guy, the partner that really manages the strategy and deals with all the numbers, and
I'm more.
He's out there, the face.
I'm more of the trader. My partner, his background is more in institutional sales, but we both do everything. I mean, it's one of the nice things about having a business of your own is you're forced to really,
that's nice.
Do everything. I like to say we will give out the menus, and we will serve the food, and we'll cook it, and we'll mop the floors at the end. I mean, we'll do whatever we need to do to make the business work. So
I'm thinking, wow, managing all that money, there must be a certain level of, and all that risk, there must be a certain level of stress associated with it. I mean, I know you're a numbers guy and you like the numbers, but does that ever get to you?
Especially I have a couple of gray hairs now, but I would say when you're in it moment to moment, you don't sit there and sort of think about
the millions of dollars.
Money. You don't really think about the money. It's more of, again, trying to almost figure out various inefficiencies in the market, and so the size of the positions is not as stressful, at least for me or for I think other traders or successful traders. If you are the type to sort of get paralyzed by that, you probably won't have gotten to that position. So the stress. I mean, we all have stresses in our life, and we have a lot of stresses in our business, particularly now with the markets doing what they do.
Yeah.
But you know, when you talk about millions of dollars or billions of dollars, it starts to sort of lose almost the you know, the meaning, because
sort of abstract.
Exactly, exactly.
So for you, it's more about just solving the problem, strategizing, just trying to figure out where the market's going to go and where you can place your bets.
As somebody once said to me, it's like sort of it's like a big math puzzle almost, and that's sort of what you get involved with in a minute-to-minute or day-to-day basis. Obviously, as an owner of the business, we need to step back and say, okay, as a business, you know, how many people do we need? How do we staff it? How much equipment do we need? What's our budget? I mean, the other, you know, all of the other issues that any business will have, and I do enjoy that.
The actual running of the business.
I do enjoy that much more now than when I was at larger firms, because again, it's more meaningful to us, and
because it's yours, or
it's ours. The ability to sort of control the direction of the business is much more in our hands, and the lack of politics, I guess, within the organization is something that I like.
How many people do you have on staff now?
We have 11.
Okay.
11.
So how do you keep yourself, because really when you're running a business, it's not like you really have your boss. I mean, you've got your partner.
I like my boss a lot, by the way.
So how do you keep yourself sort of focused and motivated on the running of the business versus just your...
Just producing.
Yeah.
Right? Well, it's there is a balance there. Again, because we are still very small as a business, I think that we can do that effectively. There are times when I'm, again, pulled away from having to watch particular positions or markets in terms of having to run the business. But again, I enjoy that. And if you staff your business and put people around you that can manage that, you know, it's fine. Again, it's a question, I think you get to a point as a business where, and we're not at that point, and nor do I necessarily want to be, where the business becomes bigger than you as a person, and you start to more, you know, sort of compartmentalize various functions, and we're still small enough so everybody sort of knows what everyone else is doing.
Has their hands in a lot of pies.
Yes,
kind of thing.
yeah.
So it sounds like you've gotten a lot of satisfaction from going off and starting your own hedge fund and running the business and working with the employees on a small scale versus before.
Right.
What have been some of your greatest challenges, and how have you addressed them?
Well, I guess it is to always look at your business. I think one of the things that I think I've come to realize is how difficult it is to run a fund. I'm familiar with trading. I'm familiar with markets. When you're at a big firm, everything is provided for you, whether it be IT help or equipment or back office functions, all of the things that go into how a financial business runs, and as a frontline person, you don't really have to pay attention much or think about how it's put in place. We have to obviously figure everything out ourselves, and so it is to try to, again, be a little more, think about the business a little more from a larger scale, and say, okay, our business looks like this right now. Well, where do we want it to go? The markets change, the world changes, and so what we may have thought 6 months ago no longer is applicable, and so we need to change our thought on how we want to look to the world.
So mapping out your strategy and then figuring out what, you know, going forward, and then figuring out what are the supports and resources you need to make it happen.
And I think one of the things we realize is that whatever you think 6 months ago is probably going to be wrong in terms of how things develop, because
especially these days,
the world changes so quickly. Even before this, I used to say that, you know, if you don't like how the market is now, just wait 6 months and
everything changes.
It'll change, and that always has been the case. Hopefully more so now, but the process of trying to guide your business is still helpful, even though it's probably not going to look the way you thought it would.
How frequently, especially these days, because it seems like we're on this accelerated change cycle,
Right.
how frequently do you sort of regroup?
Well, we regroup every day.
Every day now.
Basically every day. But again, I think generally we sort of look at our business in probably 12-month sort of cycles and say, okay, what do we want this year to look like, or where do we want to look like a year from now?
From a big picture strategy, but of course,
right, and then
every day,
obviously you sort of go through the minefield day to day, but we try to again look ahead a little bit and say, where do we want to be as a firm or as a business?
So what advice, given all your wisdom from all your experience here, what advice would you give others who were thinking of starting their own businesses, or in particular like a hedge fund, in this current climate?
First of all, you have to love what you do, I would say. It's not like it's not a career that you sort of default on because you haven't found something else you like to do. It is if you don't like the markets or looking at the markets all the time, it's a hard business to sort of fake your way through.
So you really have to love that.
You really have to love that from a sort of just a inside. And I would, I think that's a start. The other sort of suggestions I would give to someone thinking about starting, and not even just a hedge fund, but any small business, you probably have to give your business a longer period of time than you think day one for it to be successful or to become profitable. And so you have to be willing to sacrifice sort of short-term earnings potential because businesses, I think, will typically take longer than one thinks at the beginning in order to make them successful. So,
yes. Okay. That's great. Well, thanks, David. If somebody was interested in talking to you or finding out more about your business, is there some place where they could get a hold of you? Do you have a website?
We don't have a website. We have email. We have a phone number. I can give that to you. Would you like that now?
An email?
Yeah, email is dharris@acuitycap.com is our email.
Okay. All right. Thanks, David. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
I'm Susan Shaner with Community Forum. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.